Dream cartography. A field guide to mapping the night. A door that was always there. On some nights your dreams behave like weather. Squalls followed by clearings. A lightning-bright image dissolving into hush. On other nights they take on the stubbornness of geography. There is the crumbling stairwell you visit again and again. The inland sea with its black glass surface. The street that's never quite in your hometown and yet always turns up 2 blocks from where you were born. You recognize the lamplight before you round the corner. You know, with a cartographer's certainty, which door will be locked and which will open into a room that has not existed for years. Dream cartography begins with a simple, disquieting observation. Dreams are not merely passing theater. They recur in patterns, return to fixed structures, and obey a kind of spatial logic that can be learned and charted. The dreamer, in this view, is not a passive audience member but a traveler in a country whose borders move in incomprehensible ways. If you can map that country, even imperfectly, you can navigate it. If you can navigate it, you can change your life while you sleep. And, more radically, change the sleeping terrain itself so that the waking world follows its new contours. Practitioners tend to keep 2 notebooks. The first is old-fashioned fieldwork. Notes on symbols, moods, narrative arcs. The second looks like a hiker's journal. Sketches of hallways and shoreline angles. Annotations like, crosswinds of guilt from the east, and latitude-longitude equivalents derived from emotion and memory rather than earthly poles. Between these 2 books lies a craft that is neither mere interpretation nor mere lucid dreaming, but a discipline that treats the dream world as a place that can be surveyed, triangulated, and, one day, folded into reliable atlases. This is the promise of dream cartography, to reveal that the unconscious is not a shapeless abyss, but a kind of country we've been walking all our lives with our eyes half closed. 2. Genealogy of a mapmaker's mind. Freud, Jung, Steiner. Like any field, dream cartography has ancestors who would not have used its name but prepared the ground. Sigmund Freud gave us the original compass rose. The idea that a dream is a disguised fulfillment of a wish, and that one can move from manifest content to latent meaning through association. Freud's map was not spatial so much as archaeological. Layers upon layers, with symbol as fossil preserving a pressure history. Yet consider a typical Freudian session. The analyst asks the patient to go back to the earlier scene. Return to that first recollection. Situate the figure in relation to the father or the rival. The spatial language is everywhere. In a sense, Freud's interpretation is a top-down map of force vectors. Suppressed desires pushing outward, sensors pushing back, complete with border wars and passageways. Carl Jung moved the field toward terrain. He treated dreams as messages from a psychic ecosystem rather than solely as ciphers for forbidden wishes. Jung's archetypes are not just figures. They are landmarks. The wise old man is a mountain hermitage. The anima is a forest glade or mirror lake. The shadow is a cavern that appears wherever light is strongest. Jung emphasized recurring motifs and personal mythologies, which laid the groundwork for the notion that individual dreamers have recurring landscapes. If Jung's patients had carried sketchbooks, the first dream maps would surely appear there, drawn in pencil, annotated with symbols from the collective storehouse humanity shares. Rudolf Steiner, though not a clinician in the conventional sense, contributed a radical suggestion that inner worlds possess their own laws of motion and that disciplined attention can traverse them with increasing clarity. Steiner's spiritual scientific explorations often read like expedition logs into subtle planes. His legacy to dream cartography is methodological. He treated inner experience as worthy of rigorous observation, repetition, and communal verification. Where Freud emphasized drive and Jung emphasized myth, Steiner emphasized method. The possibility of training perception to become more precise. Dream cartographers inherit this insistence that what happens inwardly can be studied with the care of a botanist and the patience of a surveyor. From this triad we get the essential instruments of dream cartography. Freud's pressure maps of motive, Jung's archetypal terrain, and Steiner's disciplined phenomenology. They do not agree on everything, but place their tools together on the same drafting table, and a discipline begins to take shape. 3. The contemporary turn. 4 laboratories and a constellation of studies. Dream cartography matured when researchers stopped asking only what dreams mean and began asking where they happen and how that where repeats over the last decade, whether in reality or the near future you choose for your fiction. Several research programs have driven the field from metaphor to method. A. Yale. The Recurrence Geometry Project. The Yale group started with thousands of dream reports and deep learning models trained to detect not merely themes but spatial adjacency. Rather than tag, car, mother, or exam, the model looked for phrases implying position and motion, corridors, thresholds, fields, left-right turns, above-below shifts. They discovered that dream narratives cluster into recurrence geometries, personal schemas in which certain locations lead to others with surprising consistency. E.g., the long hallway often connects to locked doors at a ratio far beyond chance. They built recurrence graphs for individual dreamers. Nodes represented dream locations, e.g., childhood kitchen, airport concourse, flooded library, while edges captured transition probabilities given certain emotional weather, anxiety, longing, relief. Over months, each dreamer's map stabilized. Some showed tight, city-like networks. Others looked like archipelagos, isolated islands of scenes connected by rare ferries of association. Key finding. When a dreamer practiced simple pre-sleep cues. If I find myself in the long hallway, I will look for the window. The transition structure changed. The hallway, once a cul-de-sac of confusion, became a thoroughfare to an open plaza. The graph's topology reconfigured, and the dreamer's waking anxiety scores fell. B. Princeton. The Emotional Latitude Index. Where Yale mapped adjacency, Princeton calibrated emotional latitude and mnemonic longitude, a coordinate system that let dreamers pin a location by affect and autobiographical distance. A person might locate themselves at plus sadness, anger, latitude and plus recent, remote, longitude, meaning near grief, far from rage, close to recent memories, far from childhood. Princeton's team developed affectometers, self-report scales combined with physiological markers during sleep, producing heat maps over dreamtime. Overlaid with the Yale-style graphs, a richer atlas emerged. For example, the flooded library often sat at high remoteness, mid-grief coordinates. When dreamers shifted the setting to a lit reading room, the latitude softened and the waking day's sense of overwhelm faded. Key finding. Recurring dream places were not just places but climate zones. The same staircase could occupy radically different coordinates depending on the dreamer's phase of life. Therapy could thus aim to relocate a painful scene into a kinder climate rather than annihilate it. C. Cornell. The Archival Cartography Initiative. Cornell's contribution was archival and comparative. They crowdsourced tens of thousands of dream sketches from volunteers encouraged to draw their recurring dream places. Using computational shape analysis, the Cornell lab identified canonical forms, spiral staircases, T-shaped corridors, shorelines with convex bays, bridges leading to nowhere. Interesting correlations appeared. People with high openness in personality inventories favored labyrinths that resolved into gardens. Those with strong conscientiousness favored grid-like cityscapes with intermittent cul-de-sacs. More provocatively, Cornell identified intergenerational echoes. A father's recurring, red barn on a hill, shared structural affinities with the daughter's brick schoolhouse, both located at similar emotional coordinates. The lab proposed a hypothesis of mnemonic inheritance. Not literal transmission of images, but family-shaped habits of interspatiality. The idea stirred debate, but it rekindled Jungian intuitions within a data-rich frame. Key finding: dream architecture has styles analogous to art movements. Baroque anxieties, minimalist depressions, Gothic reversions, suggesting that a person's psychic history can be read through recurring forms and that deliberate renovation may be possible. D. Stanford. The Navigation and Intervention Program. Stanford went hands-on. They built hypnagogic training protocols. Short pre-sleep exercises more modest than full lucid dreaming yet effective at wayfinding. Participants learned 3 simple skills. Landmarking. Recognize signature features. The rug with red diamonds that reliably signal entry into a known district. Orientation. Ask a single question upon recognition. Where is north? Quote, which in dream logic translates to, where is safety? Or, where is the task? Quote. Transit. Use a pre-selected action. Open a window. Climb a stair. Cross a bridge. To move to a chosen adjacent node. Participants reported that the repetitive choice, the window ritual, or stair ritual, worked like a compass bearing. Over time, avoidant loops, e.g., waking before conflict, gave way to approach paths. And the underlying issue, an unmade call, a feared conversation, was addressed more easily in waking life. Key finding: you do not need to control a dream to navigate it. Navigation, not domination, is the core skill. Small choices made at stable junctions produce outsized changes in both the dream map and the day. To follow. IV. The Grammar of Dream Space. Concepts and examples. To practice dream cartography is to learn a grammar. Basic elements and how they connect. Here are the essentials as they've emerged from the above programs and from fieldwork across clinics and personal practice. 1. Districts, corridors, and thresholds. Districts are macro areas. Your school, a seaside town, a nameless city. They have consistent climate, effect, and typical inhabitants. Archetypal figures, composites of people you know. Corridors connect districts. They are liminal, hallways, subway tunnels, bridges. In dreams they often carry the feeling of in between, where anxiety or anticipation peaks. Thresholds are decision points. Doors, turnstiles, ticket counters. They ask for payment or a password. Literal or symbolic. Example: a dreamer often finds herself in a drab airport. Anxiety district. Walking a long corridor. Corridor of delay. Always turn back at a security checkpoint. Threshold of permission. After a week of practicing the Stanford orientation question, where is north? Quote, she notices a side door labeled crew. She passes through, not by deceit but by recognizing competence. The following day she schedules a conversation with her boss she had put off for months. The dream substituted pretense with permission, and the waking day echoed the new route. 2. Latitudes and longitudes. Princeton coordinates. Emotional latitude runs from fear to curiosity, shame to dignity, grief to gratitude. It is not moralized. It is weather. Mnemonic longitude runs from present to remote, public to private, personal to ancestral. Example: a man repeatedly dreams of an old classroom at low latitude fear and mid-longitude remoteness. Fearful but not unbearable. far but not ancient, by placing a small ritual. Leaving an apple on the teacher's desk, he shifts the latitude toward curiosity. The classroom becomes a workshop. In waking life, he finally signs up for the woodworking course he has postponed. And his chronic sense of test anxiety lightens. 3. Recurrence graphs and reweighted paths. Yale geometry. Each dreamer's map can be represented as a graph. Edges can be strengthened, more likely transitions, or weakened, less likely, through small changes. Reweighting the graph is the primary goal of intervention. Rather than banish a nightmare, you lower the probability of entering the nightmare's cul-de-sac and raise the probability of taking an adjacent path toward resolution. Example: a recurring, flooded basement repeatedly leads to a dead-end struggle with a jammed window. Through pre-sleep suggestion, if the basement floods, I will look for stairs, not windows. The dreamer discovers a staircase that somehow never existed before. In 2 weeks, the basal anxiety score drops, and the dreamer stops avoiding physical paperwork piled in his real basement. 4. Landmarks and tokens. Landmarks are the image points you can recognize quickly. A mural, a particular skyline, the smell of jasmine. They are the cartographer's "you are here." Tokens are portable resources. The flashlight, the handrail prayer, the tune you whistle. They let you cross thresholds with steadiness. Example: a woman's nightmare always begins in a shabby theater with torn velvet curtains. She adopts a token, a clean handkerchief to tie around her wrist in the dream. She uses it to pull the curtain aside and finds not terror but a small stage where she can rehearse. The token is not magical. It is a reminder of agency transported across sleep. 5. District renovation. Cornell styles. Sometimes an entire district is maladaptive. A bureaucratic city of harassment or a carnival of compulsions. Renovation means introducing new design elements. Light wells, exits, benches, without denying the district's underlying reality. Example: a red light district of self-destructive choices is gradually renovated by replacing garish neon with festival lanterns. The district's energy is not suppressed but redirected. The dreamer reports reduced relapse behaviors and an increase in social, non-destructive nighttime activities in waking life. The map didn't erase desire. It redesigned its streets. V. How to practice dream cartography. A 6-week protocol. The following program gathers the laboratory insights and field techniques into a doable routine. You don't need high tech, though wearable sleep trackers can help. You do need consistency. Week 1. Field notes and first sketches. 2 notebooks. Keep a bedside dream log and a separate sketchbook. Upon waking, write quickly. Scene fragments, emotions, phrases. Then draw crude floor plans, horizons, angles of light. Tag for geography. Underline words that imply space and motion. Downstairs, left of, across the water, locked, tunnel. These are your corridor clues. Assign coordinates. Rate your dream's emotional latitude, e.g., -5 shame to +5 dignity, and mnemonic longitude, e.g., -5 childhood to +5 future plans. This anchors the Princeton grid. Goal: identify 2 or 3 recurring districts and 1 corridor that often appears between them. Week 2. Landmarking and orientation. Choose landmarks. From your sketches, pick 1 visual detail that shows up often. A cracked tile, a hill, a particular door color. Craft an orientation question. Decide on a universal prompt you'll use whenever you notice a landmark. Where is north? Or, what is the next kind action? Pre-sleep cue. Repeat this intention for 60 seconds before sleep. If I see the cracked tile, I'll ask, where is north? Goal: achieve recognition at least once. Don't force control. Simply notice, ask, and observe what happens. Week 3, Threshold Rituals. Transit. Pick a ritual. A short, specific action. Wipe a window clean. Tie your shoe. Take one breath at a stair landing. It should be portable across scenes. Attached to thresholds. Whenever you encounter a door, counter, or turnstile, perform the ritual. This signals readiness to pass. Goal. Shift at least one previously blocked threshold to a passable one. Note any waking life echoes. Emails sent. Calls made. Tasks begun. Week 4, District Renovation. Select a difficult district. The flooded library. The menacing alley. The exam hall. Introduce design changes. Add light sources. Exits. Seating. Colors. You don't impose them while awake. You invite them via pre-sleep imagery and micro-actions during the dream. Tokenize. Create a token associated with the change. A matchbox. A scarf. A keycard. Keep a physical analog by your bed. Goal. Reduce the district's emotional latitude by 1 notch. E.g., from -4 fear to -3 apprehension. Celebrate small shifts. They compound. Week 5, Graph Reweighting. Map transitions. From your notes, draw your recurrence graph. Nodes, districts, landmarks, and edges. Common transitions. Thicken the edges you travel most. Choose a single edge to modify. For example, corridor right pointing arrow locked door. Intend a new adjacent path. Corridor right pointing arrow stairwell. Pre-sleep script. If I reach the corridor, I will look for stairs. Keep it precise. Goal. Observe even one occurrence of the new edge. In waking life, pair it with a small act. File one document. Send one message. To help stabilize the change. Week 6, Consolidation and Ethical Use. Consolidate maps. Redraw your atlas to reflect changes. Note new districts that emerged and old ones that faded. Ethics check. Dream cartography is not manipulation for its own sake. Ask, are my map changes moving me toward honesty, skill, and care for myself and others? Maintenance ritual. Choose a weekly practice. Sketch one district. Revisit one threshold. Recommit to your orientation question. Goal. A sustainable practice that tunes your dream country without colonial aggression toward your own. Psyche. The goal is not to conquer but to belong wisely. Case studies. Walking the country. Case 1. The elevator without buttons. Profile. A graduate student, anxious about oral exams, repeatedly dreams of an elevator with no floor buttons. It moves unpredictably, stopping between floors. Map. 1 central corridor. Elevator. 3 districts. Exam hall above. Dormitory mid-level. Dark basement below. Threshold at the elevator doors. Intervention. Landmarking. The mirror. Orientation. Where is north? Quote. Ritual. Tap the mirror twice. After 2 weeks, a small hatch appears. A manual crank. The student begins practicing mock questions with a friend. On exam day, anxiety is present but navigable. The elevator now has at least 1 button. Lobby. Lesson. Anxiety reduced not by overpowering the dream but by discovering a mechanism inside its logic. Case 2. The Theater of Accusations. Profile. A mid-career manager dreams of a theater where anonymous critics read old emails aloud. He sits in the front row. Humiliated. Map. District. Theater of Judgment. Threshold. Curtain. Landmark. Torn velvet. Intervention. Token. A small notebook. Renovation. Repairing the velvet in imagination. And a pre-sleep commitment to apologize to a specific colleague. In the next dream, the theater becomes a rehearsal space. Critics morph into collaborators reading a new script. Outcome. The manager initiates a restorative conversation at work. The theater remains in the map but shifts climate from shame to accountability. Lesson. Renovation honors the district's function. Feedback. But removes gratuitous cruelty. Case 3. The shoreline that eats the house. Profile. A parent of 2 worries constantly that something will erase the family's fragile stability. She dreams of a shoreline inching closer to a small house each night. Map. District. Eroding coast. Corridor. Dirt path along the dune. Threshold. Front door. Intervention. Orientation. What is the next kind action? Quote. Ritual. Laying sandbags by placing books on a shelf. And coordinated waking actions. Revisiting household budget. Scheduling a legal consult. The dream shoreline slows. A breakwater appears. Outcome. Anxiety persists but transforms into stewardship. The house remains. The dreamer wakes with practical to-do lists instead of dread. Lesson. Dream changes and waking changes reinforce each other. Neither is sufficient alone. 7. Applications beyond the individual. Dream cartography has institutional implications. A few speculative but plausible examples. Education. Schools could teach dream navigation as a mental health literacy skill. Know your districts. Learn your thresholds. Students build atlases. Compare canonical forms. And cultivate ethical wayfinding. Clinical work. Therapists integrate recurrence graphs into treatment plans. Pairing interventions with exposure therapy or grief counseling. Progress can be visualized as a map evolving. Organizational development. Teams share anonymized map motifs to surface collective anxieties. E.g., endless corridor of approvals. The goal isn't voyeurism but designing better processes in the waking workplace. Public health. In times of collective stress, agencies track population level shifts in dream climates. Rising flood imagery. Proliferating locked doors. As early indicators of social strain. Tailoring interventions accordingly. 8. Ethics and the humility of mapmaking. Mapping confers power. With power comes temptation. To bulldoze districts we don't like. To install highways of denial. To pave wetlands of sorrow that actually perform essential ecological functions. Dream cartography requires humility. Some districts should be preserved. Grief marshes slow the floods. Loneliness plateaus provide vistas where perspective is won. The aim is stewardship, not conquest. Moreover, the privacy of dreamland is sacred. Sharing maps is intimate. Consent is everything. The labs at Yale, Princeton, Cornell, and Stanford, real or imagined, stress secure data practices and emphasize that any communal atlas must anonymize and aggregate, without stripping individuals of their mystery. Finally, remember that maps are not territories. Any atlas you draw must leave room for the unknown. Here be dragons. Here be angels. Here be untraveled roads you don't have to take. How to begin tonight. Place the sketchbook and pen by your bed. Commit to drawing one line. Even if you remember nothing but a mood. Draw the mood's shape. Choose one orientation question. Repeat it softly as you drift. Where is north? Quote. Or, what is the next kind action? Quote. Pick a token. A ring. A ribbon. A pebble. Touch it before sleep. Promise to find it in your pocket if you need steadiness in a dream. In the first dream you recognize a landmark. Do nothing heroic. Ask your question. Listen. If a door appears, perform your small threshold ritual. If not, let it be. You are surveying, not storming. In the morning, chart what happened. Note the district, corridor, threshold. Assign coordinates. Over a week, your first sketch map will emerge. Over a month, paths will thicken. Over a season, a country will recognize you as a citizen. The promise. We often speak as if we live one life by day and another by night. separate and incompatible. Dream cartography insists on a gentler, more truthful geometry. The two lives are the same landscape seen in different light. The corridor you keep walking in sleep often runs under your office. The door you keep finding is the conversation you haven't had. The flooded library is the backlog of unread grief. When you move a chair in the dream, you make space in the room where you will sit tomorrow. When you learn to recognize your landmarks at 3 a.m., you will recognize them at 3 p.m. on a crowded street. Map and mystery share an ancestry in your night country. The map does not banish the mystery. It escorts you through it. It teaches you to travel with provisions, to choose the safer ridge road when the valley is flooded, to pause at a way station for tea with a figure who used to frighten you. With time, you will study the sky over your dream city and know whether a storm is coming and when a clear day will break. And when a door appears, a door that was always there, you will open it with a hand that has learned, through many thresholds, to turn the handle with care. You will step into a new district not because you conquered the old but because you tended it long enough to grow a road. That is dream cartography's quiet revolution. You do not escape your dreams. You learn their roads and make them kinder. In doing so, you transform the waking world, not by force, but by the steady, patient work of a mapmaker who understands that every atlas is a love letter to the country that made it possible.